You're listening to SM Media, the #1 place for exclusive content.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Scottish Football Show right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike. It's an absolute pleasure to be your host as always. We'd like to be joined by, we're missing Shankers. We've got 2/3 of our all-star panel. We'd like to be joined by Mark Lawson. Mark, how are we?
Fine, thanks, Scott. Another busy weekend in Scottish football, culminating in today's dramatic semi-final, so I can't wait to get my teeth into it.
Yeah, definitely. We'll get our teeth into it later on. We're also joined by, after a few weeks off, Rory Loy. Rory, how are we?
Yeah, good to be here. Good to be back amongst the chat, and one forced smile there, Pikey, and one happy panelist. So looking forward to the banter that will ensue this evening.
Yeah, we'll get into the big stuff later on. But obviously we've got a busy show. There's been a lot happening. We're back to domestic action. We'll just run through the results quickly in the Premiership. Dundee United beat Aberdeen 1-0. They go level in points with Hearts in third. Motherwell beat Hearts 2-0. I think they're 2 points behind third and fourth, which is a great run for them. St Mirren won, Livingston won. Rory was at that game. We'll get his thoughts on it later on. And in the Cup semi-finals, Celtic reached the final with a 1-0 win over St Johnstone. And today, a Martin Boyle hat-trick saw Hibs deservedly go through with a 3-1 win over Rangers at Hampden. We'll start off with the games in the Premiership yesterday. We'll start off with the Dundee United versus Aberdeen. It was a game, obviously, there was a lot of storylines in it, more than there was a big talking point more than the game as such, but we'll get into in a few minutes. But first of all, I want to apologise to Tam Courts because I had them completely written off at the start of the season, and they have been so far probably the most informed team in the league. Wilson, Dundee United, it's some result for them, and it's probably been one of the stories of the season so far, just how well they're doing under a new boss.
Yep, absolutely. And Scott, I don't think you're the only one that possibly wrote them off this season. They seem to have certainly. I know we discussed a couple of weeks ago that we thought maybe Stephen Glass had turned a corner. I think since they beat Rangers at Tannadice, they certainly have turned a corner from a shaky start, and they've done really well. And they're actually not a bad team to watch. And a bit of derby game for them yesterday. And as I say, you'll take 1-0 every day of the week. Couple of sendings off as well. They went down to 10 men first for crazy from Callum Butcher. Funny, but crazy. And then obviously the other sending off that we can't really discuss. But fair play to Tam Courts when he's come in as an absolute unknown, an absolute, in my opinion, only my opinion, kind of biscuit tin gamble, but it certainly seems to be paying dividends at Dundee United.
Hi Rory, what was your kind of overall thoughts in the victory for Dundee United? It was the kind of game was, a lot of people said about the game, Aberdeen were decent, they just got outfought by the better team who just took their chances better on the day. Big result for Dundee United, obviously. It's another win and a really good run so far.
Yeah, what's quite rare in younger managers is that ability to grind out a win, whether it's a 1-0 or a 2-1. You quite often find that these types of sides with younger managers in charge pick up a lot of draws, even when they're playing well, and then losing when they're not playing so well. It takes a few years and a bit of experience to try and get that know-how to get games over the line. But Tam Courts seems to have got that from the off, which is quite incredible. And hearing you say there about Aberdeen a bit unlucky about everything else, I'm fed up listening to Stephen Glass, to be honest. I find it boring now. You could literally hit record on his speech every week, every time they lose, which is more often than not. I've said before that he's in danger of pulling the wool over the Aberdeen fans' eyes. People who are watching the game in the stands who can see that they're not creating much for the possession. All this kind of modern manager blub. Sick of hearing it, and it's time they picked up a few results.
We'll touch on obviously the main talking points of the game. First of all, Wilson, we already touched on the red card to Callum Butcher, but the Aberdeen red card for Funso Ojo. Again, we're hearing this thing. The laws of the game says it's a red. I've got my own opinion on it. I'll go after you and Rory, but give us your thoughts on that red card.
I think we have to be very careful. It's now an ongoing criminal case, so I think we have to be very careful in what we say. Again, by the letter of the law, but again, I always feel discretion is probably the best thing to take on it. To be honest, but again, And I know you laugh at me every week when I have a go at the referees and maybe Charlie to be on, but again, it's Bobby Madden having a howler again. It doesn't matter what team. I think he must have got a bit confused because Aberdeen were playing in blue. I think he maybe got a wee bit confused. But for me, it's a howler of a mistake. Nothing should have happened apart from, the perpetrator being put out of the stadium at that time.
Rory, what was your? Have you seen it? Obviously, Rory. Before we,
I've seen it. I've seen it. Look, Bobby Madden is there to do a job at the end of the day, and he's in almost impossible position. Now, would his bosses and the people that employ him look at that and go, "Well, you've done the right thing there because morally, he's shown restraint and things." I think in that position, he's decided, look, at this moment in time, I'm going to book him because I feel that my job status says that I need to book him, and I've almost got a degree of sympathy for him. I don't feel as strongly about the Bobby Madden, involvement in it as Wilson does. The fan, for example, as Wilson says, it's an ongoing police investigation. But what you don't want to see is one thing you love about Scottish football when people talk about Tynecastle, about Parkhead, about Ibrox. The crowd's right on top of you. It's close to the pitch. That's a positive in our game. We don't want to see these things coming in where they're sat further back or the big nets go up like you see abroad. That shouldn't happen in this country, and there's no excuse for it. So we'll wait and see how that plays out, and the aftermath of it from the fans' point of view. But I do have a degree of sympathy for Bobby Madden. He's in an almost impossible position there. He's dealing with a situation he shouldn't have to deal with, and he's tried his best. And I think that if Funjo Ojo isn't on a yellow card already, he books him, and probably the microscope isn't on Bobby Madden as much. So I think there's a set of circumstances there which have raised their heads, and he's dealt with it as well as he's seen at that particular time. I don't think it's a howler. I don't think it's a disgrace, anything like that. The man's there to do a job. He was put in an extremely difficult position. What I don't particularly enjoy is, I think he owes an explanation at least. And I know it's not the time and place to do it on the pitch and emotions are running high. It's that kind of almost booked, walking away, I'm not talking to you. I don't particularly enjoy that. I get that it would go on all day if you were to have a big discussion and things. But I think in that particular scenario, it's worth talking to Funjo Ojo, pulling him aside and saying, look, these are the reasons. I'll chat to you a bit more about it afterwards, or we can look at it again afterwards. But I do have a degree of sympathy for Bobby Madden, I must say.
Shankers, welcome to the show. We'll get your thoughts on the Funjo Ojo red card in a second. Do you know my thing about it is the red card because he shoves the ball boy?
I don't think he. I think he thinks he can stop. I think he's trying to stop from running into the ball boy.
That's what I think as well. But that's the only. I don't see how it's a red card. It's a second yellow.
It's a second yellow.
Yeah,
I think it's because the commentators explained it yesterday. Richard Gordon explained it. By the letter of the law, if there's a confrontation with a fan, then it's a yellow card for the player. It was explained on BBC, but what it did say was discretion could have been used. It wasn't as if the player was the instigator. He was in the receiving end of a shove. Bobby Madden should have signalled to the security or the police to get the man out of the stadium, and the game should have played on. That would have been an end to it. But again, it's Bobby Madden. It's all about him.
Shankers.
That's nonsense, Wilson. That's nonsense, man.
I'm telling you, it's every week there's a mistake, and it's a high-profile mistake.
There's a difference between giving a mistake for a foul on the pitch or a potential penalty or no penalty or handball or no handball. It's going over and above his call of duty to get security involved and to get police involved. That's no fair to be asked of the man when he's there to referee a football game.
Well, the example we had at Newcastle United a few weeks ago was that they were signalling to the doctors and the paramedics to get someone. Surely Bob Man can signal to the police to get someone. If he's seen something untoward in the crowd, they can signal. Everyone saw it. The cameras saw it. It may have caused a delay in the game, but that's his responsibility as well. And all that's happened is he's come out as the panto villain again by sending that player off. Ridiculous.
Shankers, what was your overall thoughts on the red card?
I can see both arguments. I think he's the guys. What the supporter has done is it's hard not to react to that. But in the environment, maybe the players should try and stay a bit professional. But it's heat in the moment, and it probably is a yellow card if he's lifted his hands, which merits a red. It looks bad because he's sent off, and it looks as if he's been sent off for that, but it is a yellow card, so it's hard to disagree with the referee's decision. He's there to the letter of the law, and that's what he's done. So it's hard to argue really a case for the player in the end of it.
We'll move into Motherwell 2, Hearts 0 at Firth Park. Shields and Lammy with the goals as Motherwell take another really good victory. Shankers, Motherwell are bouncing back really well in the past couple of weeks, obviously, after that Rangers defeat. They're now in a really good position in the league.
Aye, they've done well. It was a result that came maybe a wee bit. No, I'm not surprised that Motherwell can beat Hearts, but I was expecting a better performance for Hearts. But teams like Motherwell at home, they've got to try and make it a bit of a fortress for the rest of the teams in the league, especially teams like Hearts who are going to be competing with to get into third, fourth place in the league. So 2-0 clean sheet, a bit of a good performance for them, and hopefully they'll maybe start pushing up the table as well.
Rory, what was your overall thoughts in Motherwell's 2-0 win over Hearts? Was that a surprising result?
Aye, possibly. I certainly thought it would have been closer. I don't think there would have been any surprise if Motherwell had won in the end by the odd goal, but it seemed pretty comprehensive in the highlights. It looked like it could have potentially been more. But there's this kind of strange air of pressure which comes on Robbie Neilson after a couple of bad results that doesn't seem to come on other managers. I don't know what it is about him and Hearts, but I just feel like he gets a bit of a raw deal at times. He comes under scrutiny very, very quickly. But in terms of the game itself, Motherwell deserve to win the game. From the highlights I've seen, they had the most of the chances, the bulk of the chances, and it looked to me like Hearts were potentially lucky to get out of there with just the 2 goals conceded, although maybe they could have had 1 or 2 themselves. But, riding the crest of a wave, Motherwell a little bit as well, back in good form, back pushing up the league again. So it's going to be stiff competition to get into the top 6 and stay there this year, that's for sure.
Wilson, obviously, Hearts' chance in the game probably ended after Moore's second yellow and obviously went down to 10 men. But would you be concerned about Hearts' run in the past couple of weeks? And does Motherwell now have the potential to kind of improve for that?
You're just echoing really what Rory's just said. I agree with him in terms of, the pressure Nielsen's under, a couple of bad results, and that's now Dundee United are now levelling points with them, which I find remarkable considering Hearts' start to the season. But I mean, when Craig Gordon gets man of the match, as Rory mentioned, it could have been more than 2-0. But
did
again,
you think it was a second yellow? Did you think that was a booking, that second one?
Yes,
yeah,
I do.
I probably did actually. Yeah.
I do. I think if that happens in the first 15 minutes, no, I don't think he would be booked for that. I think it was the fact it was his second. I don't think it's a first booking kind of thing. Or it's a Rangers player, then it's not a booking. But anybody else, then yeah, I thought it was a booking. But I don't think I'd be overly worried because what you have to look at is what was Hearts' main aim for the start of the season. What was it to finish in the top 6? Because I think they'll do that comfortably. Was it to finish, the top 3? Then you'd be looking over your shoulder. I just think Hearts probably have a kind of bigger squad that might be able to deal with when it comes to December, January in games. But I think I think Hearts maybe have Celtic and Rangers to play maybe in December, if I'm listening to
I think you probably do,
the BBC correctly. So, tough times, but I totally agree with Rory. I think Robbie Neilson gets under undue pressure for a couple of shaky results rather than other managers we could mention. But fair play to Motherwell. It was a good victory.
The final game on Saturday took place with St Mirren against Livingston. It finished 1-1. McGrath with a St Mirren goal, and then Nicky Devlin with a late equaliser to give Livingston a point. Rory, you were at that game. What was your overall takeaways for the game?
Listen, it lacked quality at times. It wasn't the most pleasing game on the eye. However, there was 2 top-class goals that are definitely worth a watch. Jamie McGrath's lovely little lob, great vision, execution of the finish, lifts it above Stryek right at the top corner. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a cracking finish. And then Nicky Devlin's technique to get over the ball, to drive it, half volley, zinger. Technique Shankers would have been proud of. No, it was a top finish. The game in between those times, the other 88 minutes, probably weren't worth writing home about. However, Livingston, I thought, probably just shaded it. One thing I'll say about St Mirren is they play with 3 at the back and they want their wing backs to get high and wide. Now, if the opposing team come, and I watched it happen when Dundee came to St Mirren a couple of weeks ago, and even yesterday to an extent, if those wing backs get pushed back the way, it almost becomes a back five at times. Then they play with two sitting midfielders. So I'm looking going, you've almost got a back five to a degree. You've got Flynn and Power sitting in front of that, and you're at home to Livingston. And there's always an air of frustration around the St Mirren support. I think going, well, three centre backs against Bruce Anderson, who, by the way, played well, but you don't need three big centre backs to play against one striker and Bruce Anderson. Mm-hmm. You've then got Flynn and Power screening balls into Anderson. It's like they've got 5 players to try and stop the smallest guy in the pitch. So it was, they actually played well in the second half. On the flip side of that, when St Mirren are on top, their wing backs come into the game, they're high up the pitch. It looks totally different on the eye, and they managed to come into the game a little bit in the second half. Over the course and distance, 1-1 was probably fair. If I was forced to pick the better team on the day, it would probably be Livingston, but there wasn't much in it.
Wilson, what was your thoughts in the St Mirren 1, Livingston 1 result? Were you surprised that ended in a draw?
No, I think we all back 0-0 when I predicted. I think the biggest surprise for me was when the commentator said it was Jim Goodwin's 40th birthday. I'm thinking, I nearly spat my false teeth out that he's younger than me. Gee, what's he said a hard paper one? But no, nothing really to report. As Rory said, I saw the highlights. The 2 goals were both magnificent. But in terms of the game, it did look a slog. But fair play to Rory. Got to meet Gavin Russell, who used to be the announcer at Kilmarnock. He's a really good guy. Good
that good a guy. You forgot his second name, Gavin Wallace.
Gavin Wallace.
I was thinking that. I was thinking that's not Gavin Russell.
He played with Stenny or something. He used to be the announcer at Kelly. Used to get the stadium really going for things, but it's kind of not that now. But as I say, I think everyone had that as a stick on 0-0 draw.
The goal for Livingston, the TV highlights were across the other side, so when it never did not do it justice. See the camera being on the other side, it was unbelievable strike by Devlin. It didn't look half as good on the telly as it did live.
Shankers, what was your thoughts in the 1-1 draw between St Mirren and Livingston?
It was probably a result. Well, it was a result that we all predicted 0-0, 1 each. I think it was, maybe could really argue, as Rory says, 2 really good goals. I'm surprised nobody mentioned it. See, late on, I thought St Mirren probably could have had a penalty. Like, basically, the last kick of the ball.
It said handball, but the referee blowing the final whistle.
Oh, I thought. But a bit, I mean, Jim Goodwin's got a kind of thing against referees and decisions against St Mirren anyway, but I was surprised. He's been up for the header, but it's hot as I'm clear as day. I thought it was a penalty, to be fair. As Rory says, two good goals. Hard to split the teams, but I was just looking, the gap between 10th and 6th is 6 points. So, I mean, a couple of wins drives you up that table, but then again, on the flip side, a couple of losses takes you right in there. So it'll be interesting to see if anybody can kind of try and pull away from the pack and separate that.
Obviously, that's the Premiership. We'll look into the Premier Sports Cup semi-finals. We'll start off with the one on Saturday night. Celtic on the final with a 1-0 win over St Johnstone. James Forrest with the late winner, about 10 minutes to go. Wilson, this, in my opinion, was a classic example of Celtic huffing and puffing all games. St Johnstone really well organised, and Celtic eventually got the reward.
It wasn't pretty on the eye. I thought it might have been when, with Abada, Kyogo and Jota all starting. But Abada wasn't really in the game. I don't know if the conditions possibly didn't suit him. Was playing far too wide at occasions when it was down Jota's side. There was something missing. And to be fair, listening to the commentary, they must have mentioned James Forrest for about maybe the 55th minute onwards. And then he comes on and a wee bit of experience maybe in there, just a kind of... I thought they put a wee bit of blame on the goalkeeper. I mean, it wasn't his best kick, but it was still, a good 30, 40 yards away from his goal. And then obviously Forrest finish after a ricochet. Maybe I was showing a wee bit of experience, maybe being in there as a kind of second striker or such, when it's down his opposite side. So, but again, I think it was a bit of a flop for Celtic. I think St Johnstone kind of managed the game okay. There was some last-ditch tackling. The centre-halves did well, but I think it was going to come down to one goal. The later the game went, it was getting pretty boring to watch. But fair play to James Forrest. He's obviously been injured and out of the team for a long time.
Big game experience as well for
Exactly. I think the comment, I'm not taking credit for this, I think he scored in 3 League Cup finals or something they were saying in his Celtic career. So maybe a lucky omen, but I think Celtic will just be glad to get through. I think there was a wee bit of pressure on Celtic to go and win the game, despite St Johnstone's success in the Cups last year. But I think Ange will just see it as job done.
Rory, Celtic obviously are through to their first final under Ange Postecoglou. That'll be a massive boost of confidence for them. But before we get into Celtic, how much credit does St Johnstone deserve for kind of making the game as tight as they did until obviously Forrest's goal?
I don't know, not too much. I wouldn't have said. I think if you've won two cups, and I don't think there's any pressure on St Johnstone yesterday. I think they've got the freedom to go out and express themselves and play, and probably not be berated in any way, shape or form for getting beat 2 or 3-0. I didn't think they made much of a game of it until they went 1-0 down in the last kind of few minutes. So I was a little bit disappointed. I do appreciate they're playing against Celtic, who, are a different animal from last year. And I do appreciate they've got good players in Jota and Kyogo and Forrest when he comes on. So I know it's difficult for teams like St Johnstone, but I thought they went out with a wee bit of a whimper, if I'm being honest. I don't think they contributed too much to the game. And I think, they often make it difficult for teams and still create chances throughout the game at the same time, but they didn't really seem to do that yesterday. Chris Kane flashed a couple across the face of goal and things, but look, massive credit to them for what they did last year, and then to reach another semi-final this year, of course they deserve huge credit for that. But if we're taking yesterday's game in isolation, I thought they may have offered up a little bit more, to be honest.
Shankers, how big a confidence boost will that be for the Celtic team to reach their first final under the new manager?
I think it will be, but I don't think it was unexpected. Like, I think everybody would have backed them to get through. That they're playing pretty well. The fans are really enjoying the style of playing, the football that the manager's putting in the squad and putting his own kind of marker down on it now. I think maybe it was closer. The result was closer than what the game actually was, if you know what I mean. It was kind of all Celtic. You know what I mean? I think if they scored a couple more goals, it would have probably been more fitting. St Johnstone, I agree with Rory, St Johnstone never really caused them too much problems. It was similar to maybe the Livingston St Johnstone final, where Livingston kind of were just there. They never really done anything. I thought that was what St Johnstone were like. Yesterday they were just there, and they never really. I know if you come out and go and have a go at Celtic's going to pick you off and end up taking 2 or 3. So maybe they've tried to keep it close, 0-0 for as long as they can, and then try and maybe nick one. But sometimes you're better going to having a wee bit of a go yourself. And I thought Johnson kind of let themselves go a wee bit in that part. But they just made Celtic through to the first final under the new manager, and obviously we're going to the other semi now, and it's looking they're looking favourites for that anyway.
Celtic will take on Hibs, who reached the final today with 3-1 over Rangers.
Can I just say, by the way, I thought that Joe Hart looked a wee bit ropey yesterday.
He did, actually, yeah.
He was the only one. If St Johnstone were going to get a goal, it looked like it was maybe going to come for a lapse in concentration from him rather than St Johnstone carving open Celtic or creating
the one with Halloran, wasn't it? It was nearly got
not even the obvious ones. He just looks a little bit suspect at times, and I see Wilton's unmuted himself, so I'll let him take this one.
He's just not used to playing in big games, Joe Hart. That's his problem. He's just a bit nervous. That nerves got to him, that's all.
But we'll get to the other semi-final. Hibs are in the final. They will take on Celtic on the 19th of December. Martin Boyle with a hat-trick as they reach their first final in the League Cup. I think it's like 8 years or something. That's obviously Jack Ross has obviously got them back into a run of form. We'll get to Rangers in a couple of minutes, but Wilson, how much credit do Hibs deserve for that performance today? I thought they were magnificent.
Definitely, and I think it's, and I know we will criticise Rangers. Don't worry about that. I think the praise goes to Hibs tonight rather than possibly the criticism of Rangers. Jack Ross, we're saying he's obviously not at a game for about 3 or 4 weeks, and I've been very critical of Jack Ross in terms of when it comes to big games and all that. And I kind of always wondered, Sunderland wasn't the right fit. I think St Mirren was the right fit for him. I don't think Sunderland was. I'm still unconvinced about Hibs, if I'm honest, but it might lead them to a trophy, so that'll be egg in my face again. But today he got his tactics absolutely spot on, and I'll touch on the other side of it when we discuss that. When we kind of 2 up, high up on the Balogun and Goldson.
Give them a torrid time.
And as I say, that they were taking bullets for each other, the Hibs defence. A couple of ropey moments. I thought when Arfield scored, I thought now you'll see, what Hibs are made of. But to their credit, they defended resolutely. I don't think Macy's had particularly that many saves. He's came and collected a few. He's dealt with a dodgy pass back that come off the post. But no, I think today Jack Ross got it tactically spot on. And I think the credit should go to him rather than crucifying the Rangers that we're going to do anyway.
Shankers, obviously Hibs have reached the final. Martin Boyle, Kevin Nisbet in particular were excellent, but defensively, once they got that massive lead, they did clear the lines a lot, and obviously Porteous, McGinn, they were all magnificent. It was just a great day for Hibs. Obviously, that big win that they maybe haven't had in the past few years, but that was one of the days where everything just went right for Hibs.
Aye, definitely. I'm no his biggest fan, but I thought Ryan Porteous was outstanding today. Everything. You've seen a bit of maturity in his play, I thought. He's maybe kind of learnt from previous mistakes in the past. He's one of the defenders that puts his body in the line for the team at all costs. Everything that was coming into the box was going straight back out. Handling as well, I'm not going to miss out. I thought Porteous, other than Boyle, I thought Porteous was probably the other kind of man of the match, if you could say, but you can't give it to somebody that's had a hat-trick. So, handling was good as well. McGinn, I thought McGinn and who was it? Sorry, left back Doidge. I thought they kind of cancelled out Rangers in wide areas like Tav and Barisic. That's Rangers' kind of strong point of getting them high up the pitch. But I think Hibs kind of full like wing backs done a bit of a job. Rangers were kind of get forced to cross feed deep, I think, and it just wasn't a Rangers' day, but all credit goes to Hibs, as Wilson says, because they were outstanding and they looked as, I know the kind of Goldson interview goes on about hunger, but it definitely looked as if they were more hungry than Rangers today and fully deserved it.
Rory, obviously you've worked with Jack Ross in the past. How kind of pleased are you for him to get to a final, and as well as that, how much credit does he deserve for his tactical prowess today?
Yeah, loads of credit. I don't agree with Wilson in terms of his placement of where Jack Ross should and could go in terms of being a manager. I think he remit down at Sunderland was get promotion. Of course, he failed in doing that, reached the playoff final, then becomes a one-off game at Wembley, and it becomes difficult. If you get that promotion, then your momentum takes you potentially into the Championship and beyond. So, he did a fantastic job at St Mirren, and then he's at Hibs. And I think he's done very well at Hibs. If you look at where Hibs were before he came, I think it's quite fitting as well that Shankers mentions Paul McGinn, an ex-teammate of mine who I rate very highly. I think he flies under the radar massively. He's not a controversial character. He's no got, you look at Stevenson and Hanlon, who get so much publicity because they've got tens of thousands of appearances with Hibs, and then you look at Porteous, who's a controversial character at the best of times. So he kind of flies under the radar. He turns up every day. He does his job. And questions asked about him when he gets called up for Scotland and things, but managers will always turn to players they can trust, and Paul McGinn is absolutely one of them. And him, Porteous, Hanlon, two bookings in the first minute and a half. I feared the worst for Hibs, I must be honest. Rangers looked like they had their tails up, but Jack Ross, delighted for him, and the best team went through in the end, absolutely no doubt about it. Just hope that they approach the final, and I'm sure they will in the same way as they've approached the semi-final, because they're more than capable of beating Celtic as well, I feel, and lifting the cup. But Celtic on their day obviously are no mean feat at the moment, because they can score goals for fun, and I don't think Celtic would have missed half the chances Rangers missed today.
I'm going to put this.
Oh, sorry.
On you go.
See, I know it's easy to get up for like a semi-final and that, but I think there's a bit of Jack Ross thinking, where's that been like so far this season, because they're in a bit of a false position in the league. You would just maybe hope this is a kind of turning point for them now, and there's some right talented players in that team, and they probably should be up there challenging for third place at least in the league.
It's days like a day as well.
3 games behind though as well. They've had games called off. I think they're 3 games behind. So
it's days like today where Porteous has got to realise how much of an effect it has when he gets sent off, because I think it's easy to forget about. They're 1-0 up at Ibrox, so the better team could quite easily went on and win that game. He gets sent off, obviously it's a big talking point, the tackle, but the impact it has in the game, you know, that just shows today, if he stays on the pitch, Hibs have got every chance of going on and beating Rangers. And that's 3 points they would have had that they've no got. So Porteous, as good as he was today, he needs to take stock of, right, this is the impact it has on the team when I get sent off.
We'll look at the other side of the coin. Obviously, Rangers are a disappointing result. It was today I think was meant to be as Rangers fans kind of put it, the beginning of a new kind of era in the club with Van Bronckhorst coming in, sitting in the stand. I'm going to put this question to all three of you, and obviously I'm going to have a wee say after you. What went wrong for Rangers today, Wilson?
Well, I think when you looked at the dugout, possibly, I think there was some of the substitutions were baffling, to say the least. But that was later in the game. Again, I think most of the old firm teams expect, you know, whether it's a semi-final or a league game, they expect the other team to sit in a wee bit, be compact, try not let them, you know, get a foothold in the game or whatever, you know, be disciplined. Let Rangers come at them for 5-10 minutes, see how it goes. But Hibs just went for the jugular straight off the bat. Got a couple of corners and things in. As I say, the Rangers, they put Boyle and Nisbet right up against Goldson and Balogun, but they had no protection, you know, because Tavernier and Barisic, they like to get forward. Davis, you know, could have maybe provided that kind of screen in front of the two you kind of mentioned earlier on. And I just felt like Rangers were lethargic, you know, none of the big players showed up. You know, you maybe expect a wee bit of magic from Kent, you know, Morales maybe creating a wee chance of his own or something, but they were very, very flat, Rangers. And I didn't think, you know, I don't think Alan McGregor said that many saves to make, to be fair, in the game. But there was definitely a flatness, and I kind of thought maybe, and you've mentioned it before, Scott, to your credit, you kind of, and now the commentators were mentioning it today as well, you kind of feel there's a bit about the Rangers team like, job done. We were here to stop 10 in a row.
I think Goldson's
we've done that.
Basically said
and,
that as well.
and there's a wee bit of flatness about them all. But I actually think, I thought Van Bronckhorst would possibly come in, keep things as you are. I think there might be a few boys after today that might be thinking, I might not play. I mean, Tavernier didn't have his best game, and he's got, you know, £5 to £8 million rate at Nathan Patterson sitting on the bench. Is Van Bronckhorst going to put him in? I know Tavernier is the captain, etc. I mean, what's happened to Hollander? Is he injured or what? Is he injured? Right, okay.
He's out about March,
because I think even last season, and maybe even the last couple of seasons, it's always seems to have been Goldson +1. I think it might be some, you know, it might be Ballard +1 or Hollander +1 from now on in. Again, I know it's a semi-final, etc. I don't think the panic button's pressed as well. Obviously, there's a bit of a hangover from the manager going to Aston Villa and whatnot. But as I say, even tactically today, now I'm quite sure David McCallum and Brian Gilman, these guys know a lot more about football than me. But even after the second goal, especially, I don't know how they didn't react to try and nullify, you know, the two boys up front and put an extra man in there. But that was there. But I mean, his substitutions later in the game were brave. Didn't pay off, obviously, but they were brave. But as I said, there was just a general flatness for me about Rangers.
How were they brave?
Well, I think just in terms of Ryan Kent's kind of one of the main players, maybe going to create, maybe a fan's favourite, but he was having a shocker, so get him off. You know, Ojo as well, didn't do much, get him off. You know, they're quite brave in bringing off some big names. Usually what tends to happen, they maybe bring off folk, maybe not the bigger names as such.
Ojo was off up north in Dundee.
What's his name? Took him off as well, and I think he's probably Rangers' best player this season, to be fair. But it didn't show. And what I also thought, now again, we're only going what we see in the press. Where was Jermaine Defoe? We were told Jermaine Defoe was leading this team, and Jermaine Defoe this, Jermaine Defoe that.
He was there because I seen the camera went to him, but I didn't really see him.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Was he sitting hiding because the boy McCallum was the one on the touchline, and then Gilmer came out laterally. So it was, and maybe that was confusing for the players who was actually running the show today. But it's not going to be a happy first day in the office for Van Bronckhorst tomorrow morning, I wouldn't have thought.
Rory, we've obviously asked Wilson the question. We'll bring it to you. What did you think went wrong for Rangers today? And is it time to press it? Is there a potential to press the panic button, or is it just a blip?
No, there's no pressing the panic button. I think there's always going to be an overreaction when the Old Firm get knocked out, especially with the circumstances surrounding the game today. I also think that I don't think today was just. You mentioned at the top of the question it was the beginning of a new era. I don't go along with that. I don't think it is the beginning of a new era. You had David McCallum and Brian Gilmore, and I get that Van Bronckhorst was there. He's had no input. He's had no say. He's had no communication. So
do you think
for
in
me,
hindsight that was a mistake?
No, I don't. No, not necessarily. Well, in hindsight, they get beat, but I don't think the mistake necessarily comes from that. I don't think that he's allowed at the moment because of a permit or something along those lines to be in the building and taking the team. So I don't think he possibly could have been anyway.
I think it did come through. They says pretty much. So they were saying whether he would have
still
an
think
input, he's not even had a day in the training pitch. So
even Cragen was saying it passionately to get Van Bronckhorst in the dressing room at half time because his team was getting beat.
Well, listen, I mean, I just think that, David McCallum, Brian Gilmore, I wouldn't place any blame at their door. I totally appreciate I totally appreciate the idea that, you look over who's picking the team, who's making the changes, who's making these decisions. I thought the subs were strange. You could say they were brave because you took a player off who, for me, that was strange, is what I would say. It's well documented that these players stay on the pitch for a reason, because despite not playing well, and I've always said it about Kent, and I've said it a lot of times in this show, he will go and get the ball and he will make things happen under pressure in difficult circumstances. Is Scott Wright going to do that? Are these, I picked Scott Wright just an example, with the guys that come on off the bench. Is Sakala going to go and want? I think Kent will always show for the ball. He'll always try and create. He'll always try and do these things. He might be the worst player on the pitch for 60 minutes, but the reason he might be the worst player on the pitch is because he's got the ball the most and he's trying to make things happen. And it only takes one split second to make something happen. So whilst it was brave in the sense that he might have created or taken off and make some headlines, I think in the context of the game it was the wrong decision. That's just my opinion. But no, I don't think the panic button needs pressed. I think you will see Giovanni Van Bronckhorst come in. I think from now until the end of November and the full of December is a critical period in any team season. And I think that you'll see very, very subtle minor changes. I expect Tavernier to stay in the team between now and then, barring disaster, losing 3-4 games on the bounce. I think that Patterson, if Giovanni Van Bronckhorst is to make changes such as bringing Patterson in, change a captain, make a statement, I don't think you'll see that till January. I think there's a breathing space in January to take a step back, to have looked at 6 weeks of training, to have kept the squad together, to play the same formation and the same core group of players who, despite getting beat today, are there and top of the league by 4 points. And I think in January you'll see a bit of breathing space to reflect. And I think the back end of January is when you'll see more obvious changes in lineup and tactics and identity. But I think between now and then, I think he'll come in and just try and steady the ship and get performances out of the core groups that's there in the same system with the same personnel. I don't see major changes on the horizon imminently.
Shankers,
sorry, Scott. Rory said there that he didn't think there was any responsibility for Gilmore and McCallum.
I didn't say there wasn't responsibility. I said there would be no blame attached to them.
Right, so would they have got the credit if their substitution had come on in 1-4-3? Would they have got the credit?
Yes, absolutely, but they didn't.
So they can't take the blame, though?
No. So for the likes of Connor Goldson saying after the game, with regards to hunger and desire and things like that, I don't think you can expect two coaches who have never worked with them fully after 4 or 5 days. That's got to come within. That's got to come from the players. That doesn't come from the touchline. So I think they got their substitutions wrong. So you could look at that particular thing and go, yeah, on that particular occasion, they got that wrong. However, what I'm saying is losing that game today as a whole and the performance in the first half from players that have been there and done it, I don't think there's blame there. So if you're going to pick that specific instance with the substitutes, I do think they got that wrong. And if they were to be criticised for that, I would agree with that. I just mean the bigger picture overall.
And what players there have been there and done it in the League Cup? There doesn't seem to be. Maybe Alan McGregor, Steve Davis.
Well, Well, you know what I mean in terms of the league and things like that. But well, it's actually a valid point actually, because people say about was it the manager leaving, was it no leaving? Well, they flunked their lines for the last 3 seasons under Gerrard in these competitions. So it's maybe absolutely nothing to do with Gerrard leaving. It's maybe just a little bit of psychology playing its part there.
Shankers, what went wrong for Rangers?
The boys have covered majority. It's hard to say team selection. I thought Lundstrom was probably coming into a period where in the last 5-6 weeks where he was playing pretty well. So I'm not saying him not starting can change the game or anything like that, but we think like Sakala off the back of playing well and stuff like that, knowing the team. But Rangers, no matter what 11 they put out there, should still be strong enough to go and beat anybody in the league, in my opinion. But just it's hard to argue with what, although I don't agree with what Bolton said, it's hard to argue with what he said. It doesn't look as if they were hungry enough today, and I don't know why. If the whole managerial situation, if somebody, I think it was Kevin Thompson, maybe said it pre-match, if the players can't take responsibility for themselves without a manager for a game like that, then they shouldn't really be at the football club, because a club the size of Rangers, players like Tavernier, who's been there for a good few years, Goldson, vice captain, players like that should have enough. Steven Gerrard only left maybe 10 days ago. It's not as if they've been left for months without a manager and they're scraping by it. The manager only left 10 days ago, so and he instilled a way that was very much a Steven Gerrard like team, like set up and philosophy and all that was playing the day. It would just look like a Gerrard team playing with other people on the side managing it, because it's hard. I don't think they were ever going to be major changes the day we interim coaches and even the managers not even had a day on the training pitch. So it was very much how.
Bear in mind, because as well, international duty, that McCallum and Gilmour wouldn't have had much time with the squad that played either.
I know. I think they maybe had. Just Monday, I think he says it. But even on Monday, there wouldn't have been like all the players in full training, because players playing in international duty and whatnot. So it is hard. I agree with Rory. I wouldn't put any blame on them for substitutions. I didn't agree with Kent and Aribo. I thought Aribo was actually probably one of the kind of better ones for Rangers. I thought, especially in the first half, I thought he was getting the ball and looking forward an awful lot, driving forward, trying to take people on and stuff like that. And Rory's right. See if Brian Kent gets the ball 10 times and loses it 10 times, he's still going to go and get it the 11th time, whereas there's other players in the team that I think maybe shortcut of that when they lose the ball, when they start going back the way and playing safe, whereas Ryan Kent will still go 1v1 with his defender at all times. So I thought it was a bit strange. I thought maybe if Morelos could have came off with Akala, if he was doing like for like. Or I thought the Kent and Aribo ones were strange. I thought Davis would have come off. I'm not saying he had a particularly bad game, but at that point, Stephen Davis isn't going to really grab the game with the scruff of the neck and going to win you the game. So I thought he could have been a bit more brave, as in sacrificing somebody like Davis who sits off the game for an attacker. So it's hard to pin the blame on them, and they've had so little time. But I thought it was a bit of a kind of gutless performance for Rangers. And see when they got the goal back before half time, I thought right in at half time, come out kind of firing again. They had a lot of the ball, but it was crossing for deep. I've just looked as if he wanted to get his head up, cross it at every opportunity. I didn't think the players were brave enough. I know going and smashing into a tackle or anything like that, but brave enough to, when they see Alvis putting balls in the box and then they're clearing it and the crowd's groaning and moaning and whatnot. I thought, see, when there was no fans, players were been brave and making choices that necessarily wouldn't normally do rather than playing safe. And I thought the players who were took off are these types of players, and I thought everything was kind of too safe, side to side, backwards when they had the ball, meaningless possession. Nobody was really trying anything to have a go. I thought the game went out with a bit of a whimper at the end. Bolton had a really good chance late on where if he scores it, you think, right, maybe with 5 minutes to go, you could sneak something. But other than that, the game kind of just died a death later on. For me, the first half was frantic and all action packed, but the second half kind of just went with a whimper. It was very poor, and the new managers got a lot of work to do. And I wouldn't surprise me if he does go and be brave and make some changes. That I think with Gerrard, there was 5 or 6 players who played no matter what, and I think you're not going to get that now. Lord, see on the Tav situation with Patterson, Tav's a captain, so a lot of people are saying he's a captain, he's not going to play. Liverpool's one of the best teams in the world right now, right? And Jordan Henderson never plays every single game. He gets managed for games, like he'll play a lot of the big games and maybe like a tough away ground.
It's a different position, but Alexander Arnold and Robertson play every week.
Huh?
The 2 fullbacks play every week.
I know. It's the whole captain situation. It's Parsons not going to. I don't think Nathan Parsons is going to hang around and wait to maybe 2-3 years when Tav's finished at Rangers to then be the Rangers right back. I think he'll be sought after before then. If he's not getting regular football, he'll be like, right, I'm off here, because there is teams that are willing to take him. See him in Scotland during the week and stuff like that. Last week, sorry, in Scotland, it's just a kind of glimpse of what he can do in a Rangers jersey if he gets a chance, and he has shown it before. I know he's no played an awful lot of football, but he has showed what he can do, and it's a tough position for the manager to be in. It's a really hard one. I honestly don't know, but I wouldn't like to be the person making the decision.
Can I just ask Rory a question? Now, Rory, you must have been at clubs where the manager's lost his job and the new manager comes in, whether it be, a couple of weeks down the line or the next day or whatever it is. Has all the managers that you've maybe seen change over, have they come in and done anything completely drastic in their first kind of couple of weeks, like change the captain, change the formation, that type of thing? I'm just saying, for example, Van Bronckhorst could have big balls and come in and play, say, right, okay, from now on, Steve Davis is the captain and Patterson is playing. That would be drastic. Have you seen managers do drastic things like that?
Probably not straight away, not instantly. And that's why I alluded to, I think Van Bronckhorst, even if he does want to do that, I think his common sense would probably tell him, wait to January, because it is such an important period. You don't want to upset the apple cart and then affect potential performances and results. And on the back of that as well, you've got a couple of weeks in January to sit down and think about things. Like, there's been a couple of occasions, Paul Le Guen, had a totally different outlook on things. And when Walter Smith came in after Le Guen had left, obviously I was in the youth side, so I wasn't directly impacted, but I'm in the same building. I see the things that go on. He filled out the squad. He brought a lot. He brought the camaraderie back, is what I would say. Not that Paul Le Guen struggled for that necessarily, but he didn't really understand the Scottish way of doing things. Were quite unique in certain things, and Walter Smith obviously clearly understood that, and came in and made big changes and got things back to the way a lot of the players were familiar with and comfortable with, and that made a big difference, I would say. So it wasn't so much necessarily tactics or anything, it was just getting the little home comforts that the boys like, that Paul Le Guen had kind of taken away back in. So, and another one, Peter Houston left, 5, 6, 7, 8 games into the season. I can't remember what it was. Paul Hartley came in. There was a situation where we had an interim manager for one game. Paul Hartley was there to oversee the game. He came into the dressing room before the game and said a little bit, and things like that, and gave all the boys a little bit of information and stuff before going back up to the stand and watching the first game. So look, there's a million and one ways of doing different things, but if he does see Patterson as his future, I think a decision has to be made on that one, and I think it has to become out soon and made clear. For it might have been made behind closed doors, where Tavernier has been told under Gerrard, look, don't worry about this Patterson, don't worry about that. There's a lot of noise about it. You're my number one, and you're playing every week. Whereas now there might be a bit of uncertainty there, and if Van Bronckhorst does come in and go, do you know what, age-wise, I want Patterson to play. We'll take what we can for Tavernier and move him on. I genuinely don't think that they would do that in the next few weeks. I know I'm repeating myself a little bit, but I think it's a dangerous tact and it's a risk to go in all guns blazing and do that from the outset. I think he'll see that winter break in January as the ideal opportunity to do these things, and I think you may see a little bit more movement then. But look, if you're asking my personal opinion, I would have Patterson in the team.
I think it's an interesting one.
Would you try and accommodate both?
I would give him a run in the team. I would give him a run in the team for like I said, if it was me and I was Gerrard and I was there and I'd been there, because I've obviously contradicted myself. I say I would put Patterson in now, because if I was a new fresh face getting in the building, I wouldn't necessarily do it then. But I think it's the right time for Patterson to come into the team. I understand Tavernier's the captain, but things need to evolve. Things need to change at some point. They can't stay the same forever. They need freshened up, and I think that Patterson has knocked on the door enough now to merit 3, 4, 5 games in the team, and I think the back end of January may see the opportunity arise.
I think sorry, Scott. I think it's interesting, the Patterson one, because I mean, again, it's sweetie money down to big teams like Everton were seemingly very interested kind of in the summer, and I know Aston Villa is slightly different because Gerrard and McAllister and these fellas have seen Patterson every day, but I kind of get the impression that Everton are maybe bidding, if sources are to be believed, 4 or 5 million based on his Scotland performances.
It almost kind of has to be.
But that's what I'm saying. I find that quite bizarre. I mean, I know he's played the odd game in Europe for Rangers, but as I say, I think it's crunch time for the young kid as well. I mean, I know he's got kind of youth in his side, but he must be thinking, wait a minute here, I'm the number one right back for my country, but I can't get into my club team. And I think it's maybe a kind of crunch time January for him to see is Van Bronckhorst, because I say that I think that's probably his biggest decision, I would think. I mean, I think you would, you're right through the whole team, but I think the starting team today, with the exception of Patterson, Tavernier,
it's an impossible one though, because crunch time for say Patterson decides in his head, right, I want to be out there and I want to be playing every week. I don't really see what he can do to set that wheel in motion to make that happen.
And that's what I'm saying. And if Aston Villa come bidding for him and get him for whatever, you can think, okay, that's fair enough, because Gerrard watched him every single day for the last few years. Fair enough.
I don't think Rangers would sell him for anything near that money. I genuinely think that Rangers as a club will want to give him at least 40, 50 appearances starting every single week before, because I genuinely think that could double, treble his price tag potentially. I'm not saying it would. If he goes in and does well, I think if you were to keep Tavernier in and sell £3-4 million, if you're going for this kind of player trading model, I think that's financial suicide.
If Rangers receive a bid of £6 million in January for Nathan Patterson, I think it would be very hard for Rangers to review the situation that they're in right now.
I think it all depends on where they're sitting in the league as well. I think it'll come down to stick or twist with this Champions League money. They'll stick or they'll twist with these types of decisions, and they'll hold off as long as they can. And I think you'll find that if Rangers are sitting second in the league come the back end of January, and Nathan Patterson's had a few good games in the team, they'll be thinking, keep him in the team for another 4 months. We'll get double the money for him in the summer.
But see if they're offering, say, £6 million for somebody that's hardly really featured. Like
that's the coin, Shankers. That's what I was
almost a kind of second choice player. It's a lot of money to turn down for somebody who's not really playing every week. The only thing is that they always say potential. The potential's kind of obviously there, clear to see. So
what age is he? Is he 19? Is he older than that?
He's just turned 20. I think he's just turned 20.
Was he 20? Oh, he's past it. Forget
it. I think Nathan Patterson will be away in January. There you go.
I just want to make a couple of points before we get into obviously talk about as the game as a whole. I thought Hibs got their tactics spot on. I thought Nisbet as well. I didn't think Nisbet that in his game as much when he was kind of dragging Balogun out. Balogun had a nightmare deal. Balogun just couldn't cope with him at all. And obviously Boyle was getting in behind and things like that. Boyle just run ragged as well. Could McGregor do better for the first goal? The second goal? I don't know. But it's a great finish, but the first goal, it's bad defending. It's Boyle shouldn't be left alone.
The corner. Was that the corner?
Hats off Tavernier.
see, at any level, I'm a great believer on people on the post, and if I think if you get somebody on the post, the goal doesn't happen. I don't know what happens with whether Tav sees it late. I think Portis has maybe got a wee
Kamara, no? It's Kamara. He just walks off Kamara.
Kamara's marking him, but it kind of.
I only cost 50 grand, lads. He's no there yet.
Portis wins a kind of flick and it comes off Tav and then falls right at. So Kamara's lost his man. I don't know whether there's meant to be him in the back post. I presume not. Portis, whoever's marking Portis has let him run. He's not got a full head on it, but he's got enough. He's got enough on it to cause a bit of problem. So there's two or three errors there in the one thing, and Rangers have seen a lot of goals for.
Aye, and that's what I'm saying. Like usually, like in a normal circumstance, you're looking at Goldson and Balogun's form so far this season. You're thinking, yeah, they maybe need a run out of the team, but you don't have many other options. You've got Jack Simpson, who really hasn't set the world on fire. Hollander's injured and they've sent Cartage out and loan, so you really need to stick with it too. Even if they're off form, it's a difficult one. And I think
my only point on it that is, and again, Shankers and O'Reilly know a hell of a lot more than me. If I'm David McCallum and I'm in charge of that Rangers team, I look at the players and I think I'm happy with that. And I look at the opposition and I think they're garbage. But Martin Boyle could win them that game because he's so quick. So the only thing I need to manage is how to try and nullify Martin Boyle, because I think that was their only threat as it turned out.
Clearly they're not garbage because they defended so well. I mean, you've sat and praised the back four and different players in the back four.
I'm looking at the league form, the league position. I'm looking. There's not one Hibs player that I would put in instead of any of those Rangers players at the start of the game today. I wouldn't take Martin Boyle over Morella.
So at the end of the game, you would be sitting there going, they've not just got Martin Boyle, totally underestimated them. We're Rangers, we should win.
That's what I'm saying. I'm David McCallum at the start of the game. That's what I'm saying. And I'm looking at their team and I'm thinking Martin Boyle's their only threat. Now, the main threat. And I'm thinking he's the one we need to nullify. And then for 10 minutes, he scored 2 goals. That's where I'm looking at the management and saying, what did they plan for? Because they must know Martin Boyle has pace to running behind.
But see what you're saying there as well about Van Bronckhorst changing things. I get that he probably will change it, but in December they need to go to Easter Road, they need to go to Tynecastle, they need to go to Pittodrie, they then go to Parkhead at the end of December. It's a massive run of games.
See, they places you need people
veterans.
You need people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He won't. I don't think he'll give Patterson that. He might give Patterson like the odd game, and I know that'll be bad for his development, but it's a big gamble leaving out your captain. And after
that's why I said I don't think he'll do it till. I don't know. That's why I'm saying you don't do that until January, barring disaster, and that's the reason why you don't do that. But it'd be interesting to be a fly in the wall. Of course, you would love to be at these discussions, and it took a little bit longer than fans had hoped to get Van Bronckhorst because it ticked so many boxes over the line. Are they as a club? Is Van Bronckhorst sitting going, well, I appreciate from a business perspective that we can't turn down huge bids, but Patterson doesn't go for anything less than 10 million because he's part of my plans. And see in January, if a bid for 8 million or 6 million comes in, it gets rejected. Otherwise, it's no forward thinking, and it's always think managers always come out of these meetings and clubs, are ideas married up, and the club showed ambition and this and that. So all these things, are they being discussed? Because Van Bronckhorst can bring in his own backroom staff. Gerrard cleared it out. He's not affiliated with any club. There are no compensation negotiations. There's a link there with his playing days. He's won a very similar league, probably a more competitive league with Feyenoord. What took so long? There must have been finer details there that needed ironed out, because for me, it looked on paper like it was an overnighter. So is the likes of a Nathan Patterson, are these things we're discussing, were they discussed, and was there a thing put in place to say, right, Patterson doesn't get sold, and that's our way of saying to Van Bronckhorst, right, this is our ambition and this is what we're going to do as a club, and if we do sell him for that 10 million, you get that back, X amount back again. You don't know these things, but I would be very surprised if Patterson Tavernier scenario, not so much Tavernier, but the Patterson one wasn't discussed during negotiations, I would say, because it's a huge decision for the club.
Yeah,
we kind of discussed it last week, Scott, didn't we?
Yeah.
Rory wasn't on, and we kind of, we were trying to guess, were they shocked by Gerrard's exit? Did it hit them hard? They thought, well, we've not got a plan B here. What are we going to do? And was that? I'm not having a go at Rangers here. I know you probably think I am, but did they think, oh my God, Gerrard's like, what are we going to do now? I mean, I know Rangers came out in the press saying there was a list, etc., etc. And there may have been, but is that why the delay took so long?
The delay's been the coaching. I think the delay's been the backroom staff, because that's still not ironed out.
I think there could be a few reasons though, because I think they'll want to, on the face of it, look like they've been pretty thorough in their search. They won't want to do it after maybe one day. Although Van Bronckhorst was maybe agreed 2 days before. It's that idea, right? We've made a decision as a club. So and so is going to be in charge for the cup semi-final. That's happening regardless of whether Van Bronckhorst comes in today, tomorrow, or next Wednesday. So we know he's coming in. Let's just appoint him in a couple of days to smokes and mirrors type idea, so that people think that we've went out and done our thorough research. But really, it would be wasting time because we want Van Bronckhorst in. But I think possibly the talks took longer because of all these these kind of minor details or major details for the club that need ironed out.
Yeah, but I know, but yeah, obviously we'll touch on the Rangers kind of situation obviously through the next couple of weeks. It's going to be a massive few weeks for Rangers as Giovanni Van Bronckhorst gets settled in the job. But we've went a wee bit over time when it comes to the Rangers Hibs game. But we'll bring Wilson in for his SPFL roundup. Wilson, quickly give us a wee rundown of what happened in the Championship, League 1 and League 2.
Well, League 2, as usual, Kelty out of sight. They just keep the train going. They keep winning. One's a big win for Stranraer and Edinburgh City, I thought. Cowdenbeath rooted to the bottom of the league and a win for Forfar as well. The big result in the first was Cove at Airdrie, winning 2-0, which keeps them top of the league. But also wins for Dumbarton, Clyde, Peterhead, and a big win for Montrose away at Falkirk as well. Keeps them going. Don't even want to talk about the Championship because I was at the Kelly game on Saturday and oh my goodness, that was awful. Absolutely awful. And I've actually noticed, and I've touched on this last couple of weeks, as Rory will know, the Kelly fans aren't happy with Tommy Wright. Now, I would be amazed if the board decided to change the manager when they're sitting top of the league. But there's a big few games coming up. I think that they play Queen's Park in the Cup. And then I think they're away in their next. I think they're away at Inverness and Raith Rovers in their next few games before they played Dunfermline at home.
It's looking a bit like a
banana skin, by the way.
No, Kelly will beat them. They're hopeless.
It's looking a bit like a two-sided league, that Championship, isn't it?
Well, no, because there's only 2 points separate the top five, and as I say. Now, again, there's a bit of a gap between.
That's what I mean.
Sixth and 10th.
First five look back.
There's 1 point between bottom and sixth. And say Dunfermline now won 2 games in the bounce with John Hughes. Partick keep winning, Arbroath obviously keep winning, and Raith won as well. So our predictions might not be as bad as we felt. Who said? Somebody said Hamilton, right enough. Who was that?
Wraith must be banging on the door at top now, are they?
Joint top,
aye.
Yeah, joint top, the biggest team in Ayrshire. But if they that's kind of lost 4 home games.
That's
4 home games they've lost. And of course,
15.
I blame the pitch, obviously, but honest to goodness, they were awful on Saturday.
How was Joel Newbley? He's been unbelievable. A few times
he's out for Player of the Week this week.
He just runs. He runs into channels well. He won a few headers. He's big. He's physical. He can carry the ball. He didn't seem much of a goal threat. They didn't really create that many chances apart from at corners. The penalty was a Stonewall penalty, but it was some save from Zach Hemming. But
David Martindale said before the game on Saturday that he would absolutely be back in the Livingston strip come January.
Well, Arbroath could get relegated then. No. To be fair, they were very well structured, very well disciplined. A few crosses into the box, but their main threat came from set pieces. But it was a terrible result, and the fans let them know. And then I was just kind of surfing the social media pages like it's Tommy out already. They're sitting top of the league, but I think the four losses at home. It doesn't do him any favours either. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Kelly make a change come the new year. There you go. There's a wee prediction.
Oh, wow.
Lawson,
Wow.
see if, say, for instance, Tommy Wright does go. Did Kelly go down the route of like Kevin Thompson or something like that, who's doing a good job at Kelty? Like, is that the route that you would want? I think you spoke before, like, about Peter Lovenclass is one of the names that you picked out. Is it? Can Kelly been doing one of their routes, if, like a young appointment rather?
Well, I mean, I would imagine Kevin Thompson's in more money at Kelty Hearts than he would be at Kilmarnock, to be fair. No, I don't think so now. I think, you know, Tommy Wright was the appointment. I think they thought he would keep Kelty up.
I think it's just league or bust for Kilmarnock this season. Like,
yes, I would agree with Rory on that.
Can I just say as well, in my opinion, no disrespect to teams in it, that's the poorest championship in terms of stature of clubs and overall standard for a long time. And I think that if Kilmarnock don't go up this year, and you find that maybe a Dundee or a Livingston or somebody drops down, it makes it a little bit more competitive, and then Kilmarnock can very easily get caught up. I think you know, league or bust is absolutely correct this year.
Yep, and then I think if Kelly didn't get promoted, then I would be all for try something new, because again, and folk have had a go at me with the things I've said in this channel about Kilmarnock. Like, you've got to remember, Tommy Wright lost his first 5 games when he came into Kilmarnock. Everyone blames Alex Dyer, everyone blames the board, and everyone still blames Allegri, and everyone still blames Bobby Fleeton, you know?
Allegri?
How did he get started?
That was my exclusive. And it's bizarre the things that go on. And as I say, Tommy Wright has signed all of those players. It's not as if he can
it's a completely new team,
Aye, and I know it takes time, but I mean, they are top of the league, and you would think, my God, imagine sacking man's at top of the league, but something just didn't sit right yesterday. The punters were quite nervous, and I know they maybe expectations, and we're still living off the Steve Clark.
That's because like they're playing Arbroath, and I'm not being disrespectful to Arbroath, but Arbroath are pushing beyond like what their expectations are. Let's be honest.
I think it's a nerves thing, because I say they've lost at home to Partick, Inverness, Hamilton as well, Wraith as well, and you're thinking, wait a minute here. You know, this guy's come in. He's
that must mean what have they must have won nearly every game away from home in that case.
I think they're fantastic. Must have been allowed a carrot in the bus on the way home. Fish suppers and all that. But yesterday they would have been lucky to get beat Sturton yesterday. That's how poor they were. The balance in midfield's no right with Olsen, Polworth, McGinn. And McGinn was the one, he's neat and tidy, it's sidewards and backwards like this fashionable position is, but he was the kind of one they took off, and then there was just a hole there, and that's when Newbley kind of come into the game a wee bit, driving all that. And as I say, you couldn't say that was a disgrace at Arbroath won. You were actually thinking a draw may be a fair result, but Arbroath, you know, took the chance for the corner. Kelly were disorganised.
We need to give a mention to our friend Dick Campbell, because every week they're just pulling it out.
So I tell you what, it was a wee bit kind of Martin O'Neill celebration about him as well. He was running down the touchline a wee bit. I think Big Rob Douglas had to hold him back a wee bit. But it would actually be interesting. I would actually like to go back. My season tickets are in the main stand, because the dugouts are right in the stand at Rugby Park now. So they don't have the kind of cubes around them or anything, you know. And I'm wondering what they're shouting at Tommy Wright, because, as I say, it's...
Do you think, Wilson, given you did not want to see Tommy Wright in charge in the first place, you were quite vocal about that, you were quite passionate about that, do you think that, given how you felt before it, that's why you're maybe seeing things, given the top of the league, you're maybe seeing things worse than they actually are? I appreciate the facts are there in terms of the home results, but the top of the league, do you think maybe your feelings before it, and then when it happened, and now are tainting your view of what's actually happening?
No, I mean, again, you expect to pay your money. You're allowed an opinion.
Oh no, absolutely. I'm just asking the question.
As I say, that's why. I mean, it was the gamble. Now, his remit was obviously to get promoted, win the championship, or go through the playoffs, whatever he wants to do, get promoted. But the way they play is feeding into, as you say, no disrespect to other teams, But see, when you're just playing long balls, high ball, I mean, they took off Shaw, I think, and they brought on Scott Robinson, and they were still chucking high balls into the box. Now, the Arbroath defenders are going, this is absolutely tremendous. He didn't try and play. Now, Chris Burke tries to play, and him and Hodgson in the right side looked okay in the first half, doing wee bits, but then he thought, right, let's nullify them. The second half, Burke didn't get a kick, and then was eventually subbed off. But I expect just to try and play a wee bit. They don't try and play.
Would you rather be third or fourth in the playoffs and playing more attractive football and it being more...
Well, I've seen Rafe a couple of times. Rafe try and play football, Inverness try and play, and they're sitting, near the top as well. But as I say, going back to the choice of manager, I think Kelly have gambled in terms of let's get Tommy Wright to get his back up. And I hope he does, of course I do. But if he doesn't, then I'd be looking down the route of, well, we need to go back to the start. We need to go back to the start. Let's maybe get a young manager in, maybe build a team. Your Kevin Thompson's, whoever can come in. I just felt at the time, and I was vocal about not wanting Tommy Wright in because I didn't think Tommy Wright was going to change anything dramatically from what Alex Dyer did. And eventually, well, you could argue last season I was proved right because he didn't keep us in the league. And the two performances that you all saw against Dundee. Now, again, do we blame the manager? Do we blame the players? Whatever it is. He still failed in his first remit, in my opinion. Now, I've never met the guy. I don't know the guy. I think they employed Tommy Wright to keep command in the Premier League. Failed to do that. I actually thought Tommy Wright might have walked. I thought he might have walked. Then he was given assurances. He was given not money to spend on players, but money to get his players in and clear a lot of the others out. And as I say, yeah, you'd be thinking it'd be mental to sack him because you're sitting top of the league, but as I say, there's grumblings from the supporters. Now, I'm not one of them, by the way, but there's grumblings from the supporters already.
Sounds like it, mate.
No, not at all.
Phil does.
Not at all. I just back the manager. Might not be happy with who they choose, but you've always got to back them. But as I say, it's
hope Billy Bowie doesn't watch this show.
It's going back to your point about Jack Ross. You were kind of a pop about Jack Ross. Jack Ross still failed at Sunderland from his remit. And as I say, you said he'd come into Hibs with a shambles. Hibs had won the Scottish Cup, so they weren't. As I say, I just didn't see the link there.
I didn't see Hibs with a shambles.
You said there were a shambles from when Jack Ross came in.
I said I didn't see a shambles. I said you look at where they were. They weren't third.
Well, no third now.
No, but they finished third last season. Was my point. I didn't say they were a shambles. I said you look at where they were to where they are now.
Do you think they're better off now than where they were under Alan Stubbs?
I think so, yeah.
Well, maybe they won the 19th of December then and got a trophy as well that Alan Stubbs did. So, and they also lost the League Cup final that year as well. So, I'm surprised. I just don't see it with Jack Ross at all. I just don't think that's the right club for him.
How did Jack Ross come up again?
Well, we're talking about these tactical news today.
All right.
Aye.
Tactical news today. So again, I'd be surprised if Kilmarnock did change manager. But as I say, I wouldn't be too surprised if they did.
Right, we'll wrap up the show just here. We'll talk about what's coming up during the week. We've got Ross County play Hibs in their rearranged fixture on Wednesday, and Celtic are away to Bayer Leverkusen on Thursday as Rangers take on Sparta Prague at home in Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's first game. We'll just get around the panel quickly. Wilson, give us your predictions for the three games. First, Ross County versus Hibs.
Well, I wonder if Hibs maybe suffer a bit of a hangover, but this must be one of their games in hand. I'll go a draw in that one, but I'll go by a Leverkusen to win, and I'll go Rangers to win.
Shankers, the three games, give us a quick prediction.
Hibs. Is it Hibs away?
Hibs are away, yeah.
I think it'll be one goal in it. Hibs probably. Hibs, one goal in it. I wouldn't see them leapfrog St Mirren. So Hibs 1-0. I'll go Celtic away to Bayer Leverkusen.
Yep.
I think they'll be too strong for them, to be honest.
I think Frimpong will be playing Shankers.
I think they'll be too strong. I watched the game when Leverkusen came to Celtic Park and they were a right good side, well built. They've got a lot of top players, so I think they'll be too strong for Celtic. And I think Rangers, they must bounce back. They know a win by, I think it might be 2 goals, and it could see them all right. So I think they'll win. Whether they win by 2 goals or not is a different question. But I think Rangers will win on Thursday. It has to be a bounce back. New manager actually in the dugout after a week's training. I think sometimes when there's a new manager comes in, for some reason, whether you've not been doing well, and a new manager comes in, see like Ben Fairmont, not been doing well, and then Don Hughes comes in and 2 wins in the bounce. Just that you got a wee lease of life. But Rangers are sitting decent in the league and stuff like that. They've maybe not been performing well, but they've been getting results at times. But off the back of the result of the day, I think they have to bounce back to win.
Rory, give us
changes in the team. Actually, I think there could be some changes.
Rory, give us quick predictions on the Ross County versus Hibs, Leverkusen versus Celtic, and Rangers versus Sparta Prague.
Ross County versus Hibs 1 each. 4-2 Leverkusen. I know Celtic like a high-scoring game in Europe. They're susceptible at the back, but can certainly score goals. So we'll go 4-2 home win, and 2-1 Prague.
Okay, I'm going to go for. I think Hibs will beat Ross County. I'm going to go 2-0 Hibs. I think Leverkusen will beat Celtic, but I do fancy Celtic to score at least one. So I'll go 3-1 Leverkusen. And I do fancy Rangers to bounce back. I think they will beat Sparta Prague. I think they'll just edge it though, maybe 2-1. And that is going to be our looking at the week. I want to thank Lawson, Shankers.
Can I just ask one more question? Sorry to you guys.
This is going to be a piss take, I know for a fact.
That's genuinely not. That's genuinely not. And I promise next week I'll get some names right next week. What? And this was what I was going to ask. I put it on the chat the other night. What now? That semi-final, so you can't put anything on Van Bronckhorst for today. What constitutes success for Van Bronckhorst between now and May?
Win the league.
I
think win the league for the financial and just aye.
So if he doesn't win the league, it's a failure.
I
think so. Yeah, but
just because
you're sitting 4 points clear, you're sitting 4 points clear. You haven't played well. The financial implications of what obviously the Champions League could be this season. I think they have. I think that they do need to win the league. I think it's again. When does Van Bronckhorst get more? If things were to go wrong, would Van Bronckhorst get more time than Gerrard because of Van Bronckhorst's time at Rangers as a player? Because Gerrard did buy himself time.
That was my next question, asking the SPL refs. Will they be under as much pressure from Gerrard? Will Van Bronckhorst put them under pressure the same way Gerrard did to get their penalties and red cards, etc.? I mean,
Rory was right. Basically, the questions were going to be a piss take.
No. The first question wasn't the first one. The first one.
The first one.
I think there will be a bedding in time.
I think he's got a lot to. I think he's got a lot to sort out off the pitch as well, with contract situations, with decisions on players who plays, who doesn't play. I think success would definitely need to be winning the league, getting into the Champions League, but getting a settled, happy squad together to the end of the season, offloading whoever needs offloaded, and then looking at bringing his own in as well. To answer your question, Pikey, he absolutely will not get the same time Gerrard did. In my opinion, Gerrard did not get extra time because he's Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard came into Rangers in a very unique set of circumstances. It is not acceptable not to win a trophy for 2 seasons in a row at Rangers. The circumstances dictated Steven Gerrard kept his job.
I don't think Van Bronckhorst would get that time. If Van Bronckhorst didn't win a trophy in 2 seasons, I don't think he would get the time. I was asking.
But you said Steven Gerrard did because of his name. He didn't. He got it because of the set of circumstances, not because of Steven Gerrard. And that's my opinion on it.
I think it was a bold gamble. That's what I'm saying. I think it was a bold gamble, and I don't think they wanted to back off until.
Yes, but my point is, if Van Bronckhorst had been appointed at that place and time, or any manager that they went with, they were sticking with that, barring disaster. They were sticking. So it was nothing to do with Steven Gerrard, who was Steven Gerrard. If it was Van Bronckhorst, he'd have got that time. It's unacceptable not to win 2 trophies in a row, a trophy in 2 years. And if Van Bronckhorst doesn't win the league this year, he'll be under serious pressure. And if he's not in a position where he's looking like he's going to win another trophy by Christmas next year, he'll be there.
If he loses, if he doesn't win the league and wins the Scottish Cup, and he's maybe moved on a couple of players, maybe got a few in, is that a success? Or is it only the league?
Need to win the league.
I think just
they need
because
to
of
win.
what's at stake this season with the league, and by the time that the league's decided, he will have had enough time to put his impact and stuff like that on the team. So it's not as if he's took over with 6 weeks to go and he's not really had enough time to stamp his authority. He's taken over right now, and by that time in May when the title, well, presume it'll be around about May time with how kind of close it is. The time the honours are getting dished out, he'll have had enough time to put his own stamp on this Rangers team. So I think
it'll be a full calendar year, Shankers. It'll be a full calendar year. It'll be next Christmas before you can turn around and go, that's Giovanni Van Bronckhorst full making, full lineup. That's his team. That's his squad.
Yeah.
This is how successful they are. But he definitely won't get this time that Steven Gerrard got. No Rangers manager in history will.
I still think it would be a failure, of course, if he doesn't win the league, because he is the manager. He will be for 7-8 months by the end of the season if they don't win the league. So I think anything what happened, it was a failure if you don't win the league, just because how much is at stake. Just the same as I think the Celtic manager would possibly be maybe hard for them because of how for last season, but I think it would also probably be a failure if Celtic don't win the league either, just because of how much is at stake financially for both clubs. Probably I would say there's maybe more pressure on Rangers just because of the kind of numbers and stuff like that they put out, because financially they almost need to
it's
win.
It's easier for Angelo, on a 12-month rolling.
Yeah,
I think it is.
What if he doesn't win the league but wins the Europa League? Would that be success?
Are we just going to sit here and go through every scenario?
What if he wins the Tenant Sixes?
See, just a quick one. I was
think
going
by
to
the
ask,
Tenant Sixes, that's a campaign we could start.
Rory mentioned the contract situation. What would you do with Connor Goldson if he's not wanting to sign a contract and he doesn't want to say? Would you still play him to the end of the season where he's basically almost saying that he hasn't committed?
He's going to be on to plums in January when Steven Gerrard's phone starts ringing.
That's the thing, though. That's the thing.
Gaffer.
Because I don't think
for Aston Villa.
Connor
No,
Goldson,
I'm joking. I'm taking the mic. I'm saying Goldson will be trying to get a hold of him and he'll not be answering.
somebody will take a punt on him, right? But his performances this season, on comparison to last season, I think last season he gets a better move than what he does this season. If I'm watching him and he's struggling against Martin Boyle and Nisbet, then I don't want to see him against Manny and Salah if he's playing in England. So I do think he gets a move, but I'm thinking
I think he'll stay in the team because there's not many options there. But I think
Shane Duffy's revolutionised himself back at Brighton.
I know there is that.
Being on a free, you'll get Goldson a bumper move in terms of the club he'll go to who take a wee punt on him, and he probably will get a bottom end Prem team, top end champ team, but probably in the Premiership if he stays in the team and does well between now and the end of the season because he's on a free. It's huge for a club if they don't need to pay a transfer fee for a player.
He's speaking the way I see him speaking right now. He doesn't look as if his body language and stuff like that looks as if he's somebody that's wanting to sign a contract. I mean, none of us will know what's been said and what's happening in the meetings, but if Glasgow Rangers are offering somebody like a contract and if he doesn't take it and almost straight away, then he's want to go in it, because it shouldn't really take a length of time that it's take for somebody to sign a new contract with like the club the size of Rangers and the size of Celtic. He's English as well. Obviously, his aspirations to go back there and play in the Premier League if he can. So I think if he's not signed it by now, then he's not going to sign it.
Is he a free in January?
In January he can sign a free contract.
So Shankar, say you were the manager, right? And Connor Goldson, say you're the manager and Connor Goldson comes and says, "Look, Gaffer, I don't want to sign the contract. I'm not saying I want to leave, but come January, I'm going to be on a free." Gives you legitimate reasons. Look, ideally, I'd like to be based down south. I want to test myself. I want to play in the Premier League. So I don't want to commit to the contract. I love it up here, etc., etc. And you know that information. Do you then think it's good for the football club to go and announce that publicly? Because as a fan, you'll sit there and go, "Oh, they've got to tell us something. Something should be said." But really, when you're in that environment, you're in that situation, is that the best thing to do?
I don't think it's good announcing it. I really don't. I just don't think. You know how fickle Rangers Celtic supporters are. If Conor Golson, they know he's almost going away. He's agreed to sign with another club, and they know that. And Conor Golson is a bad game, and you know what's going to go down. It's not going to be pretty. Basically, a lot of folk aren't happy with his interview after the game, the day and stuff like that. I know when it comes to January, that will all be forgotten and stuff like that. But I don't think it would be a clever idea, just because you know how bad Old Firm supporters are, and it's so quick to turn on players and stuff like that when they have a bad game. Rory, you've been at Rangers and played with, and I'm sure there's
You're always on me for bringing that up. Thanks for bringing that up. Jeez,
what is it?
I says I can't mention that without getting stick. Now you're bringing it up.
I mean, you ken how it is. If you're not doing well, the supporters on the
Look, when Carlisle under 23s came in for me, there was rumblings amongst the support, but I managed to get out there alive.
Aye, but the supporters on the long and letting you know. So if they went and announced, right, Conor Golson's agreed to go to Bournemouth, and
I don't mean signed a pre-contract. I mean Disney want to sign the contract between now and January is what I mean.
All right.
So the current situation, if he's had a conversation with Steven Gerrard, and I picked Steven Gerrard just because it's been him the last 2 months, and he's saying, look, Gaffer, I don't want to sign it at the moment. I want to wait to January because I want to be based down south. I want to test myself. However, I love it here. And I'm not saying I don't want to stay here, but I just want to see what's out there. I think as a human being, that's a reasonable thing to say to somebody. I think that's a reasonable...
I think he want to see if he can get a Premier League move.
Aye, so that's reasonable. But is it good sense to then announce that publicly because the fans are demanding an answer? It's not. I don't think either, because he's damned if he does and he'd be damned if he doesn't announce it or not. So I think
I think Rangers have to play him because obviously Hollander's injured, Katic is injured, the boy Simpson's a bit raw, so there's not that many options.
But as well as that, if you're Rangers, if you're looking at it from a Rangers point of view, do you want to get a bit of money for? I'm not saying you'll get a bumper deal, but you might get a million quid or something. Just
I think
avoid losing them for free.
The value of Conor Golson in January will be nowhere near
Conor Golson's value.
Aye, that's what I mean.
So I think they would rather lose him for free and have him playing to potentially win. I'm not saying he'll win Rangers League, but they know what he can do. They know what he can do. So they would rather he played 6 months to the end of the season and left for free and helped Rangers win the league. That and then that lets them get the Champions League money and sell them for £1 million in January, and they've got right. We've not got Conor Golson, but we've got £1 million, and you go and get somebody who's played to Conor Golson's level, say last year you can't get that. So I think it's got to the stage where probably more than happy to let his contract run as long as he gets the performances that he has been and helps him win the league. I think if Rangers were offered right now £1 million for Conor Golson in January, or Conor Golson plays, he goes for free and they win the league, I think they're taking that one because financially it works out better for them.
Right, let's wrap up the show there. I want to obviously, Rory's, I think batteries went, but we'll thank Wilson and Shankers for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure as always.
A beautiful Sunday, Scott. A beautiful Sunday.
Thanks very much to everyone that's tuned in. As always, please subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel and follow us on social media. Thanks very much, everyone. We'll see you soon. Cheers.